Welcome to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece Calbanero, and I'll be sharing stories of miracles, God moments, and unpacking the truth behind what joy truly means. My friend, when God gives you a direct call on your life, be sure to answer it. Here's to answering my call together. Hello, and welcome back to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece, and I am so grateful that we're sitting here in this moment right now. I am so grateful that you hit play. I know there are so many options when it comes to podcasts, so I don't take it lightly that you're taking 30 minutes of your day to sit here and just hear from me. I really hope and pray that this episode reaches the right people, and you know what that means by the title. You clicked on it. This is near and dear to my heart. And so before we get going, if you're new to That's Joy, the podcast, you might not know that we kick off every episode with a little joyful noise. Joyful noise is my version of good news. What are the good things that are happening? How do we highlight more of that? Because Lord knows we can look on our phones in this very moment and find a lot of bad, terrible news that's happening all over the world. And specifically, I want to take a moment to just lift up the city of Los Angeles and everybody who has been affected by the fires. I know personally 2 people who have lost their homes and their entirety, and it breaks my heart. I've shared their information on my stories. I'm going to share it in my newsletter, but I'll also put it in the show notes below. If you're still looking for somewhere to donate, I know that they would be so grateful for any donation that you're able to give. And so just want to lift up the city, and I pray over all the firefighters, all the first responders, everyone who has just been touched by this fire. I just pray that the Holy Spirit would move through the city, that people would begin to know Jesus more, healing would take place, and provision more than anything would happen, that everything that everybody needs would just, by the miraculous goodness of God, come to be. And I just lift them up. And so joyful noise is my version of good news. Now you're wondering, like, okay, was that your good news, Cece? That was not my good news. My good news is so sweet, y'all. If you haven't seen it yet, your girl launched a YouTube channel. That's right. You might already know that there's some podcast episodes that are available on there, but I'm entering, y'all, my food's done, so you're going to hear that little beep for a second, okay? But I am entering my era of vlogging, all things vlogging. And so that means I am going to be putting up vlogs of my life. And the most recent one is that it's the last week spent in California, ringing in the new year in the Bay Area. More specifically, ringing in the new year with my 2 half-brothers from the Philippines. So my dad has spent some time there, brought his 2 sons, who are my half-brothers, one of which I never met before, and the other I met once briefly when I visited the Philippines back in 2017. So it had been several years since I had last seen him, and it was so sweet. My joyful noise is the gift of quality time. I think that there's just simply nothing like it. You can have all the money in the world, all the houses, all the clothes, all the name brand cars, you name it. You can have it all. And yet without quality time, without memories, we just aren't rich at all. In fact, in my YouTube video, I shared this quote talking about how I came across a quote that spoke into this idea of being rich and wealthy, but not in the sense of monetary gain, in the sense of memories. And in that view, I would call myself rich too, because I know that if the good Lord called me home tomorrow, I would be so filthy rich in memories. And the gift of time is just so precious. We can never buy it back, and there's nothing that we can do to gain it. And so I am so grateful for that time spent, because we got to go to San Francisco, and it was their very first time going to San Francisco. And I'll dive into more of this in the episode, but we got to go to Disneyland. We got to go to new restaurants and new coffee shops and all these things. And I just am so grateful, because I know that there was a younger version of me that probably wouldn't have thought that she'd see this day, but she saw it. And I already know that I'm already preaching to somebody. Now, that leads me perfectly into today's episode, which is an open letter to my friend, you, or maybe someone you know who is a child of divorced parents. And I happen to be a child of divorced parents. And you probably recognize that by me having half brothers from the Philippines. Now, I just want to honestly have this be an open letter in the sense of, if we sat at coffee together, these are just the things that I would share with you. I began scripting things out, like for real, and I just felt so compelled to just share, like stop the scripting and just share from my heart. And so I want to take you back. And I don't know if I've completely unveiled all of my story in this way before, but I know that I'm ready, because I know that on the other side of my obedience is somebody else's breakthrough. I'm going to say that again. On the other side of my obedience is somebody else's breakthrough. And I know that, and I'm believing that. And so I'm just trusting God that through my vulnerability and authenticity, that you would see some piece of yourself in my story that would be a guiding light for you to find hope again, to find Him again, to find that faith again. And I know that if He could do something like that for me, He sure as heck can do it for you. So let me take you back. It's 8th grade. I don't even know what year this was. It's 2008. That's right. Every year, because I started going to school in 2000, I know what grade I was by what year it was, which is really great. Shout out to all the 1995 babies. But I was in 8th grade, so it had to be 2008. And I'll never forget my younger brother asking my mom, why is Dad sleeping on the couch? And I remember my mom sharing that my dad was sleeping on the couch downstairs because he was protecting us from the bad guys. And it was a core memory for me, because I just remembered that was the first shift of abnormality in our family. I mean, obviously, your mom and your dad typically sleep in the same bedroom, in the master bedroom of your home. And when that shifted, I was like, something feels up. And I was 5 years older than my younger brother who asked that question. And so I just remember thinking like, something's up, but not reading too much into it until my dad left for the very last time. And he left when I believe was a freshman in high school. And for all of my girls I have precious listeners, y'all, and you might be one of them, who you're 14 to 16 years old and you're in this right now. So I want to say with all of my heart that I know that this might be so much easier for me to talk about because I'm on the other side of it, but maybe you find yourself in it right now. I'm wrapping you with my love and prayers right now. Okay? Because I know how hard it is. And I don't know how hard your version of it is. All I can speak to is remembering how hard it was for me. So in freshman year, when my dad drove away for that very last time, it was staggering. It felt like a bunch of different swords going through the tiniest parts in the center of your soul. There's no way to fully describe those moments. And it feels so far now. And clearly it's been several years, but I don't know. It just feels like another lifetime ago now. And my mom and dad, I like to think that they didn't fight a lot growing up, but I guess that they had a lot of their own differences that a child can't necessarily see. And we were believers at the time. To give you a little bit more context, my parents were the first to step into divorce on both sides of the family. I'm sure you guys are familiar if you hung around with me a little bit, but my mom's one of 11 children. My dad's one of 5 children. And of those both families, my parents were the first to go through divorce. And so it was something that was extremely frowned upon, if I'm being honest, in the Filipino community and growing up Catholic, in the Catholic community, and heck, in the Christian community too. It's something that is absolutely frowned upon. And so for that very reason, I automatically felt like the black sheep. I think that for a lot of me, there were so many moments where I just had hoped and prayed, and I'm kind of getting emotional now, but I just hoped and prayed in those moments that it would end, that this would all be a dream and that it wouldn't be real, and my dad would come back home and it would be one big happy family, and we'd do our typical drives down to Southern California as we did to go to Disneyland and Legoland. Like, I just wanted that back so badly. But I knew that that wasn't the case. And so I had a lot of these pent up emotions inside of me, and I didn't know necessarily what to do with them until some of my older cousins and my brother, even older brother, and other, I want to say mentors, but they were just a little bit older than me in high school, and one of which is still my best friend to this day, that I really leaned on. And I think that it's so important for anybody, like no matter what age you are, but specifically speaking to this moment, it is so imperative that if you were a child of divorced parents and you're in it right now, and you are in even those like middle school and high school years, some of the most formative years of your life, I think those are the make or break it years, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, where if your circle isn't the right circle, it can steer you in the wrong direction. And I'm so grateful that God put all the people in my life that he did. I'll never forget, this is something that helped me tremendously. And I think I still have this very journal in my closet in my childhood bedroom at home. But my cousin encouraged me to just journal. She found out about the news and it trickled throughout the family. And I remember that even feeling like, oh gosh, what aunt or cousin or uncle knows and doesn't know that our family's going through this. And it really did feel like the spotlight was on us, but not the spotlight of a stage. Instead, a spotlight that feels like a helicopter hovering a city looking for a criminal. Like, that's what it felt like, if I'm being honest. And I think there were so many parts of me that just was thinking, man, how do I get through this? I had so many sleepless nights, and being a freshman in high school, you're already so emotional. Like, you are riding on emotional roller coasters. You know what I mean? One day you're good. The next 3 days you think your life is the worst. It's terrible. Your hormones are going crazy and you're just all over the place. But I specifically remember having so many like crying nights. And one of my cousins, who I'm still close with till this day, she got me a planner and she said, write everything in this. And at that point, I didn't even know, like, what do you write? And she said, just write everything that comes to mind. And so I remember writing in this journal, like, honestly, as a freshman in high school, like, no other way to put it, I was pissed. Like, I was angry, y'all. Like, talking about those stages of grief, I went through anger like a bulldozer. Like, I'm so angry at this. Like, I can't believe that this is our life. And I would write out, like, I'm angry at my dad for leaving and what he did to my mom. I'm angry at their situation. I'm angry that we might not have enough. I'm angry that my parents aren't going to show up to my games the way that other kids' parents show up to their games. And I could go on and on about this, right? Like, I just wrote everything down, and it was so helpful and so healing. And I still journal to this day, y'all. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not incredibly consistent 365 about it, but I will tell you something. Journaling has been my savior beyond saviors in so many ways, because I think what ended up happening is that it was birthed at that time in freshman year of high school where I began to journal. But what it's developed into now is really a conversation with God. A lot of my journal prompts start with, dear God, or thank you, God, for this day. And I feel like now, instead of talking into the nothing, and I had my faith back then, but not obviously to the way that I have it today, but now I just use it as an opportunity to converse with God and tell him about the highs and the lows and thank him for all the things that he has done and pray into the things that I'm hoping for that he will do. And I was doing that unknowingly back then. And I remember even crying out to God in some nights, like wanting him to change things and things not changing. And it was interesting because I would pray for change, but I think what he did to answer my prayers was bring people. And I'm having that aha moment now, is that the answer to my prayer looked a little bit different than what I was hoping for. for in that moment. But hindsight, looking back, it was everything that I needed, because I'll tell you what, God did provide. He provided in the moments where my mom became essentially a single mom and was raising up me and my younger brother, taking us to school every single day, trying to find and coordinate ways that we would be picked up to get home, making meals after her 1-hour commute in the Bay Area with traffic. She would put food on the table and groceries in the cabinet that we could take to school. And we didn't always have a lot of money. But what I will say is that I never felt like we were completely poor. Like, my mom found a way, and I just have so much respect and love for her because she has fought in a lot of ways. And while we're in the seat of full honesty, there were many moments, and actually a full year, where I didn't speak to my dad. And I don't necessarily would recommend that you do that, even no matter how much anger you have pent up in your heart, because I think that there were some time lost that it didn't need to happen that way. But I was a teenager and I was navigating my emotions to the best that I knew how at the time, and that's what ended up taking place. And it took years, y'all. Years and years of restoration and forgiveness and healing. And God had to do a work in me so that I can fully come to pass to realize all of these things and how they got to happen the way that they did on purpose. Like, it was so purposeful, and all of these things were divine appointments. And do I think that God would have wanted my parents to not divorce? It's a hard question to answer. And I just don't know if I'll be able to fully answer that, because what I see now is how much He works things out for good. For good. And I think I love this this thought that a friend shared with me once, but I think it was shared by her therapist. I'm forgetting the root of it, forgive me. But she basically had shared, imagine your darkest times in your life. Where do you think Jesus was in the room? And I love that so much, because when I think about high school freshman year Cece crying in her room, I think that Jesus was right beside her. I think that Jesus was holding her and was handing her spiritual tissues and giving her a hug. And I think that Jesus was in the bleachers watching her play basketball when her parents couldn't make it to her games. I think Jesus was there the whole time. It's never that He wasn't there. And of course, there's this peace that we'll never know on this side of heaven, of the allowance of why these things happen, because God allows it to happen, right? But we can't even go there. In fact, there's no point to even allow our minds to go there, because God works all things out for good. And so as I look at my life now, I just am in a position of years and years of restoration and healing and redemption and forgiveness. And I see God in it. I so see Him in it. I see Him in the dorm room where different fights and challenges arise, and there's just a lot of noise, because truth be told, that's what divorce is. There's a lot of noise in a lot of different directions, and it's hard to get your mind to be quiet and still and to just be with God. And I am so incredibly grateful, because throughout my high school experience, I used a lot of the emotions that I had pent up. And I knew, and I literally told myself, and I think I looked up the statistic of child with divorced parents and their success rates, whether they go to college or not, whether they graduate from high school or not, what their lives look like. Like, I was just so curious. And I remember in those moments thinking, I will fight to defy every statistic that I see here. And I used all of that fuel, what I tried my best for good. I ran for different leadership positions in different clubs, and in my leadership class, I ended up being the student body president of my high school, graduating with a 3.75 GPA, and I just fought. I kept fighting, and I kept thinking, if I'm going to fight something, I might as well fight to be the best version of myself and to build the best possible life for myself. And that's what I truly felt. And then I channeled that, and I was like, not only for myself, but for my family and for my future family. And so a lot of the drive that you see in me today, a lot of the things that I want to do today is driven from that girl. And so to say and to even think that who would Cece be growing up without that experience, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know if I ever want to know, because I love me. I love who she grew up to be. I love what she is passionate about. I love how driven she is and how much she wants to continue to build a life for her now family and for her family that she has around her and for her future kiddos. Like, y'all, it gets me fired up because everything that you have gone through is on purpose. Like, it's for a purpose. And God will use it for good, because it might not look good right now, but He will use it for good. It's crazy because I just spent a week with my half brothers. Do you know how angry I was for years? Even when I found out that my dad was having another child, how much anger I had. So much anger. And the thing is that God knew how angry I was, how sad I was, how depressed I was in moments. He saw my mom, He saw my dad, He saw those precious boys who are now, I call my half brothers. He saw it all. And He's using it all for good, because the last week that I got to spend in California making memories with them was the most redemptive thing that I've ever experienced in my life, because I just would have never thought that we'd get here. I know someone's relating right now because you're in it, or someone's relating right now and you're looking back and you're like, I don't see that day for us. I'm not in it. I'm past it, but there's been way too many valleys to see that day. And to that I say that that's a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell, because y'all, I've been through it. I don't share enough of the things that I've been through, but I've been through it. And I've seen things that I would never want any child to see. And I want you to know that there is the light, and it's closer than you think. And I just want to share a couple verses with you that really, really encouraged me. Specifically, Romans 8:28 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. The next verse right here from Micah reads, we will again have compassion on us. He will tread our iniquities underfoot. The Lord will cast all our sins into the depths of the sea. These verses are surrounded around redemption and having a redemptive story. And I think about it so much of how good God's love is for me, how good God's love is for my family, and how it doesn't stop there. It's for you too. I almost shied away from even sharing this episode because I didn't even know how much I wanted to share, how I wanted to even speak into it. And I do believe that the enemy wanted me to not press record and to just say, maybe I'll do it some other time, and say, you don't have all your thoughts fully hashed out. Maybe you shouldn't share it all. But then I got this message. Hi, Cece. I've been listening to your podcast for a couple of weeks and I love it. I have a question though. Could you do an episode on children of divorce and how to keep their faith? I'm 13 and my parents divorced when I was 2, and I've been really struggling to keep my faith recently because my dad hasn't been really involved in my life, and it's leading me to ask God if I was ever enough for Him. Usually I do a pretty okay job at reminding myself that it's all in God's plan, but then sometimes I just go back to that dark corner of depression. My sweet sister, I want to leave this anonymous for your self, but you know who you are. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful you sent this message, because through your obedience of sending that very message, I know there's another girl listening to this who maybe wanted to reach out and say that, but just didn't quite find it in her yet. So to my girls, how do you keep your faith? You run to that journal like it's your direct phone line to God and write it all out. Let it out. Because I love what Lisa Harper shared once, but she said things can't heal when they're in the dark. And that's so true. Things die in the dark. My plants, when they're hidden in the dark, they literally shrivel up. And same with my veggies that I put in the closet on accident. They shrivel up and die quickly. You've got to bring things to the light, and to surround yourself with the people that you know are going to call you closer to God and closer to the light. I'm so fortunate that God surrounded me with the people that he did, because I know without a shadow of a doubt I wouldn't be who I am without it. And the third thing is just trust. Trust that this is all going to be just a piece of your story. It'll make you better. It'll make you wiser. It'll make you stronger. It'll allow you to see life through a clearer lens. I just believe that to be so true. So cling to faith like it's everything that you've got left. Because the truth is that's all we got. That's all we have. And the most important relationship has to be that, the one with you and God. So stick to it. Dive in. My friends, I love you, and I'm so grateful that I got to share a piece of this story with you. If you want to see who my half-brothers are and what my family kind of looks and feels like, I put up a YouTube video. It's up there. You can find it on my channel at C. Colbanero, and I just would be so grateful if you liked it to hit that like button and comment and even subscribe to my channel, because I'm excited about the content I'll be putting out on that platform. If you love this episode, would you let me know in the Instagram DMs? Literally just shoot me a DM at C. Colbanero again and let me know if this resonated with you. I'd love to know you and pray over you. And my friends, if you're not yet on the newsletter, you can go to the show notes and make sure that you subscribe to the Joy Corner, because that's an amazing place to be. And I'll tell you what, I'm grateful you're here, that you're listening. And if you feel like that joy is a positive light in your world, would you do me the biggest favor? Hit that subscribe button here too. Drop a 5 stars and go write a review. It means the world to me, and I'm so grateful that you go the extra mile to do that. I'll never leave a That's Joy episode without saying, if you have even the smallest desire to meet the creator of the universe, or if you've already been saved but you're not really free, I want to invite you to sit at the table of plenty with me and so many others. I'm telling you, there's abundance here. There's so much joy here, and God is for you. All you have to do is invite him into your heart right now. He's waiting for you. He wants to meet with you, and I am so proud of you. If you just made this decision, I'd love to know you. Shoot me a text to that number in the show notes so I could pray for you. I love you. God loves you. And until next time, I'll talk to y'all next time. Thank you so, so much for being here.